Hello.
Good morning. Oh, yeah.
You're look at your
Wow.
pretty background. Hey, Kelly and
Wow.
Kirsten.
Jenny.
We're you.
The
Hi.
whole gang here.
Oh,
That's awesome.
so much
The whole
fun.
gang.
Yeah.
Yay.
What a treat.
Yeah.
This is gonna,
Glenn's kind of in the background too. Barrett, is it okay if like Glenn sort of is like hears here and there or
well,
you
I
know?
mean, he's there in the background, so
Yeah,
what can you do?
exactly. Okay.
Oh, so cool.
Hmm.
Yay. Oh my God.
Hey.
Any of you that were not here yesterday, did you get to listen to the replay before today?
No, not yet. Not yet.
No? Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely something. Yeah, definitely something to listen to for sure.
Was it really? I was on the couple weekends. Like, was it really different from that? Okay.
It was completely different. Um
It's
uh
always completely different, right?
it's always completely different. Yeah, and the night before I really got like just some stuff that I had to put in there. So um,
Yeah, I listened to it and it had a lot of activation. A lot was happening in a subtle but big way. It was beautiful actually. Yeah.
cool. All right, I think like trying to remember who's all gonna be here. There's definitely some people that are gonna be popping out depending on their schedule. Um all right, well, let's start by getting to zero, as we were saying yesterday. Can you hear me fine? All good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna just mute everybody. I need to take like a master class on how to use Zoom. I'm like, how do I do this all at once? Okay. So just taking a few deep, slow inhales and exhales, as if you could breathe through the bottoms of your feet. Settling into your own body as I do the same. And then we'll begin. Finding any tension in the body, going one layer deeper, resting, relaxing, and unwinding. Letting yourself melt into the support of wherever you find yourself. You can gently place your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Activating the channels through the roof of your mouth, out through the top of your head, helping you deepen, relax, and unwind. Going one layer deeper, finding any remaining tension, resting, relaxing, unwinding. And from this place, speaking to yourself out loud or within yourself is commanded and requested that diamond healing light be sent to each and every cell of my body now. Thank you. It's done. Show me. Sometimes there can be sensations of anxiety when feeling like you don't know how to do something. What would it be like if you did know? What would it feel like if you could feel it? And even still, others experiencing it almost overwhelming. What would it be like to experience this with grace and ease in the body, knowing that you can fully receive the light that's here for you to experience? Resting, relaxing, unwinding. Commanding and requesting that the channels of diamond healing light, the meridians for diamond consciousness are further opened, widened, expanded, and grounded perfectly throughout all layers and levels of being, balancing and harmonizing all masculine and feminine aspects of your energy field, and equalizing the pressure, the distance between your human and divine self. Allowing the 4 quadrants of healing to balance and harmonize within themselves. And just downloading for you and letting any of these in will not feel good to you. That you know what it feels like to easily learn, that you know how to easily learn, that it's possible to easily learn. That you easily understand new information, what it feels like to understand new information, that it's possible to understand new information, that you have sources, truth, definition, and value of understanding new information from the highest perspective. That you know what it's possible, that what it feels like, and that you can and that you do easily assimilate, integrate, and embody new information in the highest and best way for you. Commanding and requesting that any blocks, barriers, beliefs, ideas, identifications, attachments, understandings, perceptions, and perspectives that limit your capacity to understand, grow, learn, evolve, take in new information, assimilate information, integrate or embody it, be cleansed, cleared, purified, return to source, and replaced with your soul's highest, best, and healthiest understandings, perspectives, perceptions, and realizations around your abilities to learn, to take in new information, to assimilate, integrate, and embody all that you're receiving now and throughout your journey, past, present, and future, in all languages that you speak, integrated perfectly from physical to ethereal down to the cellular level. And across all aspects of belief, known or unknown. Thank you. It's done. It's done. It's done. Show me. And now speaking out for yourself, out loud or silently within your mind, whatever feels better for you, although I do recommend speaking it out loud at first. It is commanded and requested that any and all activations, downloads, initiations, embodiments, and integrations for my highest, best, and healthiest at this time, directly from my soul's connection to source, be given to me now with grace and ease to all things affecting the physical to the ethereal and integrated perfectly throughout all bodies down to the cellular level. Thank you, it's done. Show me. And just witness, feel, fully resting, receiving. Take as much time as you need and as you're feeling done, but don't rush it. You'll know when it's done. Usually just beyond the point when you think you're done. And whenever that is feeling complete for you, just coming back to the space. Don't feel rushed if you can feel other people finishing before you. This is good practice for working with clients. who will always want to rush you on time to get as much as they can out of a session, not realizing that they're missing out on really steeping in this. The part that wants it to end usually isn't who they are. And finding out who they are in this level of stillness is new and uncomfortable and totally natural. So when you're helping clients do this, getting them to go beyond the moment they feel they're complete, that's actually when they're beginning to receive the full benefit to their nervous system. And one of the final pieces that you can always do, just asking that the angels of integration continue integrating these energies in the highest and best way. I love how some people are so still. It looks like the video is complete, like turned off. They're just frozen perfectly. So beautiful. And those of you that are still more active, pay attention to the stillness that's present, even though you're fully conscious and doing things, writing, looking, observing. Notice how you don't really have issues in this state, problems. Even if you're aware your body has some sort of physical dis-ease going on, how present is it in this moment? Perfect presence isn't about doing something right, but just being here for whatever is. You can't actually escape this level of presence with life. You can just add things on top of it. This is your 0 point consciousness. I was joking with a friend this morning that when I do these meditations in the beginning, it's really for me to get the field really quiet so that I can do what I do more easily. Because I'm so sensitive and aware of so much information all at once. It's easier when I can get everything down to the still point when we're in a group setting. However, this, before any kind of quote unquote work, spiritually, energetically, doing this on your own, getting to this place on your own is important, because when we're on our own, our audience is the entirety of our being, everything inside of us. All the cells, all the organs, all the systems, any alleged bacteria, mold, candida, fungus, viruses, parasites. They all transmit consciousness, thoughts, feelings, emotions. This is something actually science is starting to recognize. So especially when we're in a state of turmoil in health, or in moments when we feel like that is present, or when we're sitting with a client where that is present, getting yourself or people beyond the point of wanting to keep moving forward allows us and them to sink deep into this 0 point. And now the ego isn't necessarily in relationship to the things that you're aware of, but it's presence that can interface with it. And presence is that which always receives value from anything. So how can you transmute a virus, bacteria, fungus, mold, candida, heavy metals, parasites, or radiation if you're afraid of it? Yesterday, when we were talking about diamond consciousness, this is something that we will be at least starting every session with. Thinking about how, as I said, when it was given to me in a vision, diamond consciousness, I-A-M, capitalized in the diamond, U-S in consciousness, capitalized. This was concept that was new to me when I was receiving this 10 years ago. But I really took that to heart. What does that mean? I am us. I love talking about religion because there's this idea of omnipresence. So God is either everywhere or not. Can't have it both ways. So can you find God in a virus? Can you find God in bacteria, in mold, and fungus, candida, parasites? And just because something is God doesn't mean that it necessarily needs to be in your body. But each of these things have something to teach us. And when you're finished learning from them, there's no reason for them to be in your field. And that's how we transmute infections. And don't worry, we're going to go way deeper into the actual protocols to do so, but just so you know. Because all of this interior design is, again, a relationship first with yourself and then with everything else. But everything else is also you. So these are all reflections of how you relate to yourself. Viruses usually relate to worthiness issues, bacteria to guilt and shame, fungus, mold, candida, resentment, parasites, allowing other people to feed off your energy, or you feeding off other people's energy. So, symbiotic relationship. So first, it's pulling out any sort of wrongness for these things occurring. Back in the early days when I was just using supplements and things to help people heal their bodies, I had a lot of clients come to me with herpes. And there was like so much shame around having herpes. And honestly, I mean, that's one of the easiest ones to quote unquote get rid of, even just with things like monolaurin. Clients who never have outbreaks anymore because they take this. But then it gets more exciting because then you realize that there's all these beliefs and feelings and sensations that are linked between a virus and a host. Usually these things are programmed into us prior to even having real verbal understanding of what is going on in our reality. Passed down through the family line. And so we'll go through different exercises, and this will all be in the workbook that I'm currently writing for you guys with all the commands and protocols and exercises and ideas that you can do for yourself in your own time. So just being aware that everything that we're doing in these calls is really to just transmit an understanding, a feeling, a knowing that things are possible. And the basics of how to do that. And then having all sorts of tools to play with it at your own pace. Because this really is a personal journey where you're diving deep into your relationship to life. And it's so cool when you have your first experience of transmuting an infection. Because then you realize what this life is really about. And it feels fucking awesome. One of my mentors back in the day, who was a theta healer, but she said she just did like DNA healing. And she told me that what really got her started into many of these avenues was getting herpes from a former partner and having outbreaks, testing positive, 9 times testing positive. And she did all this energy work on herself and tested negative multiple times and never had outbreaks again. And that's just from energy work. But we have to understand the type of energy work that we're doing. Because you can do energy work, and a lot of people do energy work, but they're doing it in a way that is counter to the principles of life laid out in orthobionomy. We talked about a little bit about this yesterday, but it is how you're relating to life. So if you're trying to push something away in order to get to another place, you're not really in relationship with that thing. You're just going to create more time for yourself in the thing that you don't want until you recognize it as equal aspects of consciousness. I once meditated with a bacteria, antibiotic resistant. Why are you here? To ensure your relentless attention and focus to health. Thank you. Cool. Thank you for being here. Thank you for providing that lesson. And just these millions of eyes were looking at me, and they're like, no one has ever recognized us as equal aspects of consciousness. And they said, thank you for recognizing us as equal aspects of consciousness. Now we will reveal our secrets. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, how to kill us, basically. Become in harmony with them. And they gave me specific amounts of herbs and actually also Western medicine in combination to heal. Herbs I'd never heard of. I Googled them, and they were specifically for antibiotic resistant gonorrhea. But the first step in so many of these things is releasing the shame around them. Especially when it comes to anything deemed as sexually transmitted dis-ease. But isn't it funny that that's the hardest thing for people to release and transmute, because the layers of distortion in our society around sex and sexual energy is extraordinary. And many of us have worked in fields and helping people realize this through their own bodies awakening. And there's so many ways in which we can become quote unquote immune to any number of bacteria, viruses, parasites. Because when we no longer resonate with particular set of beliefs or feelings, there's nothing left for that to teach you. And later we'll be doing exercises like finding the most parasitic person in your life, figuring out what they were teaching you, and releasing them from teaching you whatever value we uncover. That experience, doing that exercise alone, dewormed my intestines. And then I took ivermectin. I wanted to take ivermectin because I intuitively kept seeing worms in my intestines. But something inside me told me to keep waiting. And true, yes, part of that message would be transmitted from the parasites that didn't want to leave. But there was the other part that felt like something else was coming. And that was realizing you can clear parasites just by doing exercises of releasing parasitic energies from your field. They have nothing to latch on to. There's nothing to host inside of you. One cool thing that you can do with anything, but particularly viruses, this works really well, is talking to them and asking them about their experience. Because a lot of them, this is a way you can actually access your own feelings as well, that are they're binding you to a particular entity. Asking them what their experience is of life. A lot of them, they don't want to harm anyone. Most of them don't want to harm anyone. Most of them see themselves as like there's nothing wrong. I'm supposed to be here. I'm serving a purpose. Those of you that have taken Anatomy of Awakening know that I talk about the 3 centers of perception. The gut, the heart, the mind, power, pleasure, presence in the gut. The first distortion away from original innocence, which is where our supreme health lives and exists at all times, with all these layers above it. The first distortion that pulls us away from that is a sense of wrongness. And that's where dis-ease truly begins on an energetic level. And it begins with a belief that something is wrong. And when you continue to go down that path of something is wrong, something's wrong with me, something's wrong with my environment. You're sending your whole system, you're sending all your hormones into disarray because they're just confirming what you are saying about life. Something's wrong. Something's wrong? Like, let's prove that to you. This is wrong. This isn't supposed to be here. And we're not meant for illness or dis-ease. The body is designed to constantly be upgrading and healing and aligning itself to the edge of consciousness, which you are always surfing. Whether you're conscious of that or not. And when we're unconscious of that, life provides us materials and problems and issues and things to become conscious and remember the perfection of life that is always playing out. And sometimes the power of that wake is so intense, people literally pass away from it. But then they go into the full awareness and connection with source anyways. But I think you and myself and many others would prefer to do that in the body. And that's really the point of interior design, is to understand that you have such a beautiful connection with life. And when you're willing to learn and grow from any experience, nothing can harm you or hurt you. That's the baseline that we're returning to, but it's also where we begin from in order to do what we're doing. You can command a virus or a bacteria or anything to go away. But if you're doing it from a place of fear, it's not going to clear. And again, remember I said yesterday, don't necessarily recommend pulling things physically, because when you pull things physically, you're guaranteeing that all the emotional components connected to that will come up all at once. One of my mentors, she did a session for me where she pulled every single dis-ease experience that I've ever had in my life out from my body, reversing every dis-ease that I've ever experienced. And she said at the end, that's going to take you 30 days to integrate. Dude, those 30 days were some of the worst days of my life. Because literally the next morning I woke up and it was like I had pneumonia, chickenpox, strep throat, COVID, like every possible thing that you could think of. Even paronychia came up, which is like this weird infection of your thumb that I had when I was a kid. It was like all these things that I had ever experienced. I was feeling energetically and sometimes physically all of those symptoms, but it felt like they were being lifted from my body. So it was like, I'm getting unsick. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like the reversal of this. So these are like totally possible things, but there are also more graceful ways that I've learned to do these things. Because there's a part of me that had to die in order for me to be where I am now in relation to all of these things. And that part was the part that wanted to be like God, that wanted to like prove that I'm some like superhuman, invincible, blah, 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 you know? And we're these amazing beings that are so capable of creating with life and light. But a relationship with the source within is so important, because then there's no distance between us and it. When we're trying to move from point A to point B, that's when things get weird. Because all of everything is happening right now, right here. So you are either completely healed right now, or you're not. And there is, of course, a journey through that, but that is the experience of grace through the dimension of time that we lovingly get to experience, rather than viewing that as a threat. So when you're going through a healing process, recognizing and saying, as I said yesterday, I hope this lasts as long as it needs to in order to completely transform me. Saying something like that is putting you in alignment with the process and time that it takes for the transformation that's occurring. It's also you acknowledging that you're in a process of transformation, and that is important, and that it's not something to escape. It's not something to be afraid of. No, literally, no matter what dis-ease you're talking about. And first pulling, releasing, clearing, removing the group consciousness, the idea, the consensus reality that there is anything incurable. When I was in high school and I got mononucleosis, the doctor was like, well, it's a virus, there's nothing you can do. You're going to be sick for about 6 months, and that's just it. And the cocky, full of like God is limitless possibility inside of me just laughed at him and was like, literally, I was just like, fuck that, no. And I went home and I did some research, and that's when I discovered coconut oil and monolaurin, which is an extract from coconut oil. It's in women's breast milk. It's what allows babies to develop their immune systems. And in less than 24 hours, I felt 84% better. It was very specific, but it came in like that. So 84% apparently. And then by 48 hours, I felt better, like literally better than before I got sick. So that's when I was like, incurable virus, like, what are you talking about? I remember being as a kid and learning about my uncle who was diagnosed with HIV in the 80s. And him and his friends at the same time were diagnosed. My family's always been very organic. He refused the drugs. All of his friends decided to take what Dr. Fauci and all the people back then were prescribing, which was AZT, a chemotherapy drug that was so toxic that they shelved it for cancer patients because it would kill them instead of the cancer killing them. So real lovely to give this to a whole generation of queer men. All of his friends died in 6 months. And he lived for 8 years, dying of a genetic disorder that he was born with. And when I knew that, I was like, something's really not adding up in the world. And then again, as I said yesterday, my dad with diabetes, it's incurable. And I was like, no, it's not. Having these experiences for ourselves is helpful in obviously building the subconscious. I start from everything's possible. I don't care what anyone says. That's it. Start from there and assume that you're safe and that things are going in your direction, in your favor, no matter what is happening. Literally anything is possible. And you'll begin to bend reality in ways that are unimaginable to the outside world. Because you're in alignment with all that is that you are. It's that relationship to life that is what allows like the most miraculous things to occur. And we're going to do some epic stuff that's coming to me right now in just a little bit. But I just want to like really share the depth of that possibility. Another really important thing to the healing process that I've discovered is not owning, because today's title is diagnosis, right? Not owning any diagnosis. I don't care what it is. I have this, I'm this, blah, 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 whatever. When you're owning it, you're strengthening a frequency and you're strengthening an identification with a collective consciousness of a particular thing. One of the most powerful things I ever did was unhook myself from the word gay. Because when I subscribed to that, and even when I came out in high school and said I was gay, I was like, I'm gay, but that doesn't really make sense, but that's what other people understand. But attaching that label to myself, there's all this psychic energy. We're all going to become a lot more aware of the way that we're speaking about ourselves, about life throughout this entire course, because language is magic. And what kind of spells have we been putting on ourselves? I'm tired all the time. I can't remember. I'm not good at that. I'm sick. I always get sick. I'm in pain. I can't sleep. I can't focus or remember anything. I can't do this. All these things that we tell ourselves. I'm fat, I'm ugly. I'm an angry person. Like, we're literally owning all of these things about ourselves. And as we go through this whole process and we are moving through belief work, we're going to be clearing all these things that we thought were us. And that's why the 0 point meditation at the beginning and doing this for yourself as often as you like is important, because it brings you back to you and what is true about you. Not the stories that we tell ourselves or the stories that are told in society. you can literally make yourself sick. One of the most interesting things I pulled from myself was I have to be sick in order to get attention and love. And I realized that because growing up in abusive, emotionally not sufficient space for myself, which no parent can ever be, because each generation is designed to be better than the previous one. So no parent is going to be sufficient for you, just FYI. That was the only time when I felt like I got really good, pure attention, was when I was sick. So a lot of us super sensitive souls who are feeling all these emotions and energies and not necessarily knowing how to navigate it, holding it and capturing it in different aspects of our physical form for later resolution through the phenomenon known as dis-ease. It's important for us to understand, like, what am I getting? What's the gain for me to hold on to these things? If someone has cancer and they believe that they only get the love and attention from their family when they're sick, what's the chance of them healing from that? Everything is mutable. Everything is changeable. Beyond all this, and we'll get into this in later classes as well, but just touching on it now, I had the strangest download. I forget when exactly now, but the download was the immune system doesn't actually exist. And I was sitting in meditation, I received that, and then the next was, don't assume that you know how the body works. Okay. And then I'm shown these visions of different dimensions of the body, different organ systems that don't exist in the physical form, but in the body, and how they're working and moving and doing things in such a precise order that we can't even imagine. Things work in so many different ways than we think they actually do. And then I was scrolling TikTok or Instagram one day, and I saw this post from an herbalist, and I'll be sharing all of my favorite resources for herbs and all sorts of things like that. But again, the spirit comes first. So receiving that information, the immune system doesn't actually exist. Well, then what is all these things? But I saw this herbalist, and I knew that he knew when I was reading his post, and he says, the immune system doesn't actually exist. And I was like, okay, this is like wild confirmation. And then he's sharing but the lymphatic system exists. And the lymphatic system is your detoxification. So when that gets gunked up, then yeah, you can definitely have illness. So you can be poisoned. I'm not saying that poisons don't exist, but sometimes the poison isn't glyphosate in the fields or fluoride in the water, but the thoughts, beliefs, and ideas that you have about yourself about the world, about others, those are what make you sick first. And sickness starts in the ethereal and comes down, becomes more and more physical. By the time you have a physical dis-ease, you've been sick for a very long time. But you are not sick. Dis-ease is what is coming out. Everything, your body is the past. Your consciousness is the only thing that is present. Everything that you are aware of in this reality is already in the past. This is life that's already been done. You're watching the reverse. And actually, this is an understanding in Hawaiian culture that is so in the way that they perceive that they don't actually even really remember that there's anything else other than that. Everything is the past. You're moving backwards. And what I mean by that is, even on a scientific level, this is true. The moment that you notice something, the moment that you hear the words that I'm speaking, I've already spoken it. By the time it comes through the computer, the frequency reaches your ear, it sends an electrical signal that your brain interprets. By the time you actually hear it, it's already in the past. So in a very literal way, that's the past. But what I mean is, when you are born into the world, and especially the first 7 years of your life, you're soaking up everything in your reality because you're designed to come into this world, soak up as much conditioning as you can as an agent of transformation. And as your soul throughout your entire life comes into the body, you are coming in this way. What is not you gets flushed out of the cells of your body like a cold pressed juice. You're just coming into the body and it's pressing out of your cells all that isn't in resonance with who you are. So all the triggers, all the emotions, all the bad thoughts you have of others or yourself, those are just echoes of what's leaving. And most of what you're trying to heal is actually just you holding on to things that are already leaving. Like, what's the point? What is the point of grabbing onto it as if it's the part that thinks that there's something wrong with it? As I said, the first distortion that leads to illness and dis-ease happens energetically, and that is the sense of wrongness, that something is wrong, that I'm wrong, that that's wrong. The medicine is knowing that everything in your reality is perfect, even if it's not preferential. This is perfectly right the way it is. Life is fair and just always. People say life isn't fair. It's not true. And then all the things that pop up when I say that, those are all the things that we have resentment around, being in a particular way. Well, that wasn't fair. I'm not saying it's okay that, these things happen, but forget all of that. This is about coming into a power within you that is utilizing everything in your reality. You can literally take in any poison and turn it into nourishment for your expansion. I remember being asleep, waking up to this man that had always wanted to have sex with me and always told him no, waking up to him having sex with me. And my first conscious thought was, I can't imagine how much pain this person must be in order to do this to someone else. And it took me years to process how I responded to that. And for years, my mantra was, thank you for showing me who I am in response to anything. And I thought that was really powerful and amazing. And I loved that that happened, because it really did. It showed me who I am in response to any experience. Or you're going to rate me? I'm going to take that energy and devour it and turn it into my power. But then later in my life, I learned that true healing is a perfect balance between absolute rage and total compassion. Most people on the planet, and one is not better than the other, by the way. Most people on the planet tend to naturally go towards total rage. It's just how most of us are wired. Their healing is to touch the other side and bring to balance through compassion. Me going immediately to compassion and having experienced so much rage in my direction as a child just didn't access that. I was like, oh, it's not who I am. But God is everywhere, right? So God must also be inside that total rage. And I remember working with a friend who was doing a session for me about abundance. I always say that your sexy chakra and your money chakra are the same chakra. So of course he was like, I feel like something's coming up around sexual trauma. And I was like, I feel like I've fully healed that, so I don't know what it is. And he's like, no, you need to get angry about it. And he said that, and something inside me was just like, and I literally said it out loud, and I said it only one time, and that's all I needed. I said, fuck you for raping me. And I felt 1,000 lifetimes of energy just leave my body instantaneously. So when you're feeling resentful, let it out. In fact, one of the pieces of homework that I would love everyone to do between now and next time that we meet is to write a hate letter. Write a letter of all the people, the things, whatever that you hate, and give the part that wants to hate free voice to do whatever. And you know what I would do? I would burn it on February 20th. It's a super new moon in Pisces. So all those emotions, you can let those come out, because Pisces crucified me in this lifetime. I love my Pisces, and also the people who have given me the deepest pain in my life have always been Pisces and Scorpio, but mostly Pisces. And that's because Pisces has such a deep magic to it, because it is so otherworldly. It is so tapped into emotion in a way that we can't even, most of us, understand. And the world is not comfortable yet with feeling things. And so there's a lot of resentment in Piscean energy that just needs to get out. And I have been punching bag for much of that. And at the same time, every single punch that was made was tonifying and strengthening me into something that was comfortable with feeling in a way that no other experience could have provided. So if you have a piece of paper with you right now, or just logging in your mind, begin writing out all the things. Just write names, just for right now, just write out names, circumstances, events, things that happen in your life that you resent, that there's and it doesn't even have to just be a resentment, just any emotional charge. Could be people's names, like, oh, my ex. We're gonna do a whole thing on sexual energy that's gonna blow your freaking mind. Not today, but another time. So I'm going to give you some time to do that. I'm going to take a restroom break for myself right now, and I'll be back in a few. as you're continuing to write. One of my clients one time was like, I just can't find enough things to write in my gratitude journal. And I was like, how about a fuck it journal? Fuck this, fuck that. It's like one of the most healing things that they did. It was amazing. It's interesting. A lot of fungus, mold, candida. There's a lot of that. It's related to resentment. They fill up the space that's lost when the microbiome is deteriorated, usually from a lot of antibiotic use. And it's so interesting that killing bacteria would leave a field of resentment in its wake. I mean, wouldn't you resent being slaughtered? One of the best ways actually to deal, there's twofold, right? You can cure any disease with the right supplement or product or whatnot. But doing it with consciousness first, and then doing that not only leads better results, but sometimes you don't even need the thing. We were talking yesterday, a friend and I, about, being addicted to supplements. Whew. And I was sharing how when I was really going through a lot of health challenges, I spent $10,000 on supplements in the span of like a month and a half. And I'll be honest, I mean, it definitely helped. I felt so much better. But what was funny is my body told me, like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just taking care of my health. And my body's like, you're actually causing harm. And I was like, how? They're like, because every time you take this, you're telling us subconsciously that something is wrong. So I was still experiencing being sick. So I stopped taking everything and I immediately started feeling better. There's also times when you're taking something that is, say, anti-parasitic. Although those are usually like one and done. So let's say you're taking a better one would be like coconut oil or monolaurin. Two of the best things that you can take for fungus, candida, mold in your body. Specifically monolaurin because it's a concentrated form of lauric acid, which is in coconut oil. But it'll kill candida. Like anytime I'm like craving sweets and I'm like, I don't necessarily want to be on that train right now. Taking monolaurin will balance the yeast and the fungus in the system. That's what's craving the sugar. But what's interesting is these things are related to resentment and they crave sweetness. And everything in the body is like a poetic metaphor. So someone who craves the sweetness of life but isn't getting it, wouldn't they be resentful? And in order to avoid feeling resentment, because that's spiritually bad, the sugar helps the nervous system stay vibrating above the 0 point where we can properly interface with everything so that we don't have to feel it. Because the thing is whatever we're feeling up here in the nervous system, if you can think of nervous system activation being instead of it's reversed from what we typically think. So the baseline is here. We think we want to avoid things that spike our nervous system. But what actually really spikes the nervous system is dipping below what wants to spike it with these various things. So we think the issue is like, oh my God, all the caffeine or the drugs that I'm doing to like, you know, it's freaking out my nervous system. What's actually freaking out your nervous system is just the thing that wants to go up there to avoid going just below that. And so we go into the 0 point to properly interface with reality. So, but you can be taking monolaurin and you'll feel the die-off of all of these yeast in the body. And they'll be like, no, 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 stop taking this. It's making you bad, making you feel bad. You shouldn't be taking it. And you'll hear those thoughts or those feelings and stop taking something that's actually good for you, convinced that those are your thoughts, your feelings. And that's why the 0 point meditation is so powerful, because then you can get clear on what's vibrating above the 0 point field of your energy. I remember having to take antibiotics, and it was the first time that I'd taken antibiotics in like, I don't know, years and years and years and years. And I felt like felt like I was dying. And then I realized that I was actually tuning into the thought and emotional field of my microbiome. And as soon as I realized that, I felt so much better because I was able to separate myself from what I was perceiving. Instead of being it, I'm able to perceive it. Again, that's also helpful to know that everything that you can perceive is not you, because there's enough distance between you and it for you to perceive it. If you were it, you wouldn't notice it, which would make it unconscious. So again, all those things that we think we need to heal that are showing up are already not you. You're just watching the past versions of unconscious aspects of you leave your energy. So one of the best things that we can say when we're experiencing a lot of symptoms, any symptom actually, this is one of the most powerful things, is thank you for showing me how much is resolving right now. You can pull yourself out of fight or flight with that. So your body can't heal when it's in that state of stress. When people are given a diagnosis, it can send them into fight or flight. But again, remember, any diagnosis, ADHD, ADD, COVID, great example. They develop this collective consciousness around them. COVID, for many people, interestingly, the consciousness wrapped in around that helps provide an escape from reality. And how often did you find people who just didn't want to do things and they weren't capable of actually expressing that using, well, it's a pandemic or it's COVID, you know, as a way to get out of stuff? Creates a consciousness around that, an avoidance of life. Not owning it, not talking about it. Also simultaneously not being afraid of it. And why should we not be afraid of any diagnosis that ourself, a client, or anyone in our family or friend group shares with us? Because the secrets of life are always hidden in the words. A diagnosis is dia-gnosis, or through the knowledge of spiritual mysteries. So when a doctor shares a diagnosis, like, for example, with mononucleosis, the doctor is like, well, it's a virus. There's nothing you can do. I'm sorry, sure, you're going to be sick for at least 6 months, and that's just it. That's the diagnosis. My diagnosis was going through the spiritual mystery of believing in myself and realizing that I can heal myself by taking a supplement. One of the coolest things that you can do with Google is type in whatever you're going through and then type in the word Reddit or earache natural cures Reddit, and then just read comments. That's like in my early days, that's all I did. I was like diabetes. Well, they didn't have Reddit back then, but you know, diabetes natural cures Reddit. And like literally it was 2 hours before I collected enough anecdotal evidence of people saying that it cured them to be like, okay, I intuitively and logically trust this, order it from Asia into Canada, from Canada into the US, because it was an illegal product in the United States, because it claimed that it would cure diabetes, which is, again, illegal in the United States unless it's a drug, which they're not going to cure it because there's no value profit-wise for them in that. So that's what I used to do. Just look at chat rooms. That's like the best place to find natural cures, because people are going to share their real experience. And then you just, you know, download for yourself. I know what it feels like to decipher perfectly the information that I'm receiving and understand what is highest and best for me at this moment in my life. But that's a diagnosis. A doctor's just telling you that you're going to go through a hallway of initiations of spiritual mysteries that you wouldn't have imagined prior to that. when working with any dis-ease, disorder, one of the best ways to begin working with it, if you're unsure of where to start, is how does it make you feel right now? Strep throat, for example. Agitated, irritated. Ooh, okay. Link all the times that I was like to my brain, hey Siri, like find all the times that I was irritated or agitated and share what needs to be resolved around that issue right now, and then write it all out. And then do the commands as we talked about before. It is commanded and requested that I forgive this, whatever that is. You can do a blanket, you can write it all out and do a blanket, but I feel it's more effective and more thorough and honoring of the experience that we've had in the human body when you go one by one. Maybe you feel worried. When was the first time that I felt worried? What have I been worried most about in my life? Source within, it is commanded and requested that all times, places, events, circumstances, known, unknown, remembered, forgotten, discovered, or undiscovered, where I have been worried, anxious, unsure of my safety, to be pulled, cleansed, cleared, purified, and replaced with the understanding, knowing, ability, and possibility that I am already and have always been completely living in faith, whether I felt it or not, from the highest perspective. It's funny that, sometimes we think we don't have enough trust or faith in life, but we do always. We're just trusting and having faith in things that don't necessarily feel great. Trusting that something that you have is incurable or can't be instantly healed. Worried that you're gonna die. It's a funny one because like the body is gonna die, but you get to move on. So facing that one is actually really important. A lot of cancers develop out of a body encasing energy that has been so fragmented from our consciousness that it sees it as a threat to the body. Whenever you have a toxin that enters the body, so let's say for example, I'm feeling really down and out of sorts, and I go and sorry, just thinking about it, I get Dairy Queen. And I just get a big, nice blizzard full of food grade polymers and flavoring, usually artificial. And I'm just like at home, like eating this. everything is quantumly entangled. So when you take in a toxin, it is quantumly linked to the way that you were feeling or what you were doing with that at the moment that it was happening. So if I'm trying to use that to suppress a particular emotion, say sadness, those toxins are linked to sadness through the quantum field in my body. So this is why I say when you can command toxins to leave your body, and then you have the emotional response, because whatever it's linked to, you're going to need to also clear. Or you can work with the emotions, and then you have the physical detox. And there's ways to mitigate the detoxification effects that I'll also write in the workbook for you. But essentially just allowing things to integrate without the need to experience symptoms in order to know that this is already done. It's a clean and easy way to say it. And what you're doing when you're saying these commands, you're like a computer coder. You're just commanding life to write out a specific code. I remember when some of you may remember when my ex died, and I was meditating on the other side of the planet and was up all of a sudden with Council of Heaven, and they're like, I'm like, we need to order a walk-in, like he's not done with his life. And they're like, that'll fry his body. And I'm like, okay, well, how about we add an addendum to this contract where instead of that higher frequency walk-in soul frying his body and killing him, it actually heals his body. And they just looked at me like, we've never thought of that, right? Like everything is possible. We just have to code things in the correct way in order for them to be done well. So everything is like iterative. We're testing things. Like I really want you guys to play with these things on your own, because you're all powerful beings. You wouldn't be here otherwise. You're ready for this kind of information. Like you knew that you wanted to move in this direction, whether you knew exactly what it was or your soul did. But begin when you're making commands, when you're playing between this session and the next session, watch what happens. If you pull sorrow and command it to be replaced with your soul's highest and best realizations, perceptions, beliefs, understandings about life that are available to you and pertinent for right now, watch what happens. Like what realization, what do you start to notice in your reality? Everything has this like cause and effect. Like if I command this, this is going to happen. One of the things that I totally forgot to tell you guys at the end of yesterday was how to ground. So a lot of people were reporting like having a hard time sleeping last night or waking up at odd hours, because the energy that we did yesterday with the activation around diamond consciousness and diamond healing, that frequency is so high, and it's like an amphetamine. It's like ding, like you're there, and it can be hard to sleep. And I was telling my friend afterwards, I was like, yeah, like, you know, I forgot to say that I would never use that when I was trying to go to sleep. Like I would always Reiki myself to sleep, because that energy would just like, oh, put me to sleep. Because a quote unquote lower vibration doesn't necessarily mean bad. It just means that it's slower. It's going to bring you down. So just being aware of these things, you know. Some of us had experiences of like massive flares of resentment after class and before this class. Later, we're going to do one really potent thing that a lot of us resent deeply. A lot of us deeply unconsciously. So if those kinds of like angsty, agitated things are coming up, like, of course. And what I notice, what I know how and what I'm about to do with a client or in a group session is I go through everything just prior to it happening. So when I start to feel really agitated, I remember feeling really agitated, like I could feel my liver really like doing something. And I was like, oh, like there's about to be a clearing of anger for whatever reason. And that was actually, I think, just before I did the I healed my eyes. And there was a lot of anger wrapped up in that. But the liver, you know, so it's like being aware of like, oh, there's some like activity here. Like, oh, Chinese medicine, this is anger, this is sadness. Like something is about to pop off here and cleanse and be activated. Or, you know, think of things like a moon cycle, you know, you're coming up to the full moon, there's like a slow increase in the intensity of the energy, and then on the other side there's a decrease in the energy. So all time is arcing. Every moment of activation, there's an increasing up to that moment and then an integration of that. So after today's class, there will be like a peak and then there will be an integration period. And some of us can think like, oh my God, I'm going backwards or like, you know, whatever, but just, you don't need to always have the gas pedal all the way down to the floor. It's fun, it's amazing, but it's not required nor necessarily good to always be doing that. So just getting more of an acute, microscopic, more focused look at reality and noticing how the way that you're praying is moving energy in your life. And again, I'm going to create a whole workbook. I am creating a whole workbook of prayers and commands, how to word things in specific ways, and why you're wording them in that way so that you can understand what you're doing to affect change in reality. And again, no matter what you're praying at the end, and let it be greater than I could ever dream of asking to receive for myself. You're calling in that miracle level of healing or realization or whatever it is that you want more of in your life. But knowing that you're calling in greater than you could ever dream of asking to receive, you're going to call in some form of movement or quote unquote chaos in your life. That movement or chaos is what's providing greater than you could ever dream of asking to receive. But it's when we're in communion with the source, the divine within and throughout, that we begin to trust. When you're in this prayer with life, life becomes a ceremony. You trust. When you're not praying, when you're not communicating with, and you're not in relationship with yourself, which is all. I am us. I am this. I am. You're not going to trust life. You're not going to, because you're not relating to that. It seems as something apart from you. And this is the exciting part about new medicine versus old medicine. Old medicine relies on the dominator system. There's a bacteria, a virus, a fungus, a parasite that I must dominate in order to be safe. Whereas new medicine is pulling, releasing, clearing, purifying all fear, doubt, scarcity about the body, about what's happening in the body, and moving into a reality where everything is assisting you. And the way that we do that, even if we don't feel like it is, is by working with presence, which is that which receives value from everything. So whether it's a situation, a virus, a bacteria, a fungus, parasite, whatever, what is the greatest value that I'm receiving from this? With resentment, what am I getting by holding on to this resentment? What am I getting out of that? Do I get to feel powerful? Because I really want to feel powerful, but I can't feel powerful unless it comes in a passive form. Because I was taught that that wasn't good to be powerful. Or I had examples of people being powerful in a harmful way. And so I don't want to use my power because that would potentially mean that power could be bad. Do I associate power with something that's bad? This is when you really start to see the beliefs. You can talk to source. Like, sometimes I'll just be like, show me what I believe about this. Whatever question, whatever command that you do, pretty much is a blanket statement. Just end it with show me. Not only will that affirm and confirm and reveal more information, it builds a relationship to all aspects of your consciousness, whether seen as external or internal, so that they know that they can provide you information. It increases your psychic and intuitive abilities because you're opening the channels of communication. And when you understand what belief is holding you there, like I remember being in an abusive relationship and asking like, what am I doing here? And the answer that I got was really hilarious. And it actually took me a year to act on it. And that was to make the choice that your mother never could. And that was completely cut myself off from that individual. Forgiveness is beautiful. Compassion is beautiful. But you don't need to stay in abusive relationships in order to prove that to yourself. Again, who do I need to prove that I'm compassionate to? If I'm the only one that's here, I know that I'm compassionate. And sometimes we do need to prove that to ourselves. One of the most beautiful things in activating deeper compassion is thinking about other people in your life and imagining them as yourself, because they are. And there was a moment in 2012 when I was sitting on a rooftop in San Francisco and I got this vision of the light of myself. But in the vision, I was my dad. Like the light that I know myself to be was my dad, and he was abusing me. And I was watching this happen in this vision, and it was pulling the version of me that I am now out into existence. And I realized then that infinite love, which is why I have this tattoo, I got it literally minutes after I had that download, that changed my life. That infinite love is all that's real. Everything else is illusion. What does that really mean? That even the most abusive, harmful things that we can think of are loving us into greater versions of ourselves. If we allow the power of our creator self to come online, rather than continuing to play stories of victimhood that simply feed into resentment, guilt, shame, all the things that feed parasitic energies, viruses, bacteria, fungus, in order for us to develop something physical that we can then witness and engage in a more literal way, instead of resolving things earlier on energetically. And it doesn't mean that when you're doing that, you're not going to develop experiences that show up as physical disease. In fact, I would say celebrate a diagnosis, because it means that you're about to go into a realm of gnosis, spiritual mysteries, that you had no idea that you were going to be initiated into. Congratulations. And if you trust that it's there to assist you, then you can begin conversations like, hey, that's how I started talking to this bacteria. I was like, hey, they're like, are you talking to us? That's what they said. And I was like, yes. And they were like, no one's ever acknowledged us like as something to communicate with. It can be fun to heal. It can be fun to transmute infections, because it's about relating to life. And again, just wait until you have your first experience transmuting an infection, and then you realize it opens something out in your brain. Me sharing these stories is amazing. And that in itself is already beginning to rewrite your subconscious to allow more of these experiences into your life, because you realize that it's possible, because you can feel when I'm sharing them that it actually happened. I'm speaking from the experience of that, and that begins to shift. That's what we're doing when we're talking to other people. We're just transmitting consciousness and medicine. But having those experiences yourself is amazing. And before we get to this exercise, not having to experience illness in order to prove to yourself that you can cure it. You can be a powerful healer without having to have that experience. And also know that you might have that experience. And knowing that if that does occur in your life experience, it just means that you're adding to the resourcefulness, the expansiveness of what you're able to transmit. When my neck was out of place for, I don't know how many days it was, and at that time I couldn't afford a chiropractor. When I sat down in meditation, I wasn't planning on like touching it and then suddenly seeing all the quantum particles expand out, move to a new position, and then lock back down in like a fraction of a second. And then suddenly my neck is in alignment. But because I am so willing and so available to life being different in every single moment, when I was a kid, like I was aware that people didn't want to be proven wrong. Like I wanted to be proven wrong. Like show me, like prove me that I'm wrong. Like I want to expand beyond what I know. And when you can get like a flavor in your mouth, a taste in your palate for being proven wrong, and not that you need to be proven wrong, but desiring so much to expand beyond what is known reality, that you're willing to be wrong, you'll actually start being right more often because you're in tune with something, an intelligence that is beyond facts. This is the way things are. Okay, whoever said that, it's a belief that this is the way things are. People are like, oh, that's not possible. Life is everything. It's solid. You need to physically move it. Well, when you go to an atom, it's 99.99% empty space. So all the things that are made up of atoms are mostly empty. And what's not empty is just energy vibrating. So what is physicality? Is physicality just a label that we apply to something that we don't understand, but we can see? I don't know. But you're safe to be wrong. You're safe to explore beyond anything you could dream of asking to receive for yourself. Okay, before we get on to the other exercise that will take a little bit more time, just a quick, fun, short exercise. You can do this for clients or other people. And don't worry about writing it down now. I will share that later with you in a way that's easy to repeat. So just closing your eyes. Breathing as if you could breathe into the bottoms of your feet. Allowing the energies of the earth to rise up into the body. Grounding any excess energy in the nervous system. Allowing the energy of source, diamond consciousness to come into the body. And allowing these energies to balance the 4 quadrants of healing. The masculine, the feminine, the divine, the human. And just speaking out loud to yourself. It is commanded and requested that all radiation that my body has received throughout my life that is foreign, toxic, and chaotic to my nervous system be transmuted into a harmless form sent back to God's light. And replaced with unconditional love and nourishment for every cell, system, and organ in my body, raising the frequency and harmony of every particle in my body now. Thank you. It's done. Show me. And watch, feel, know, see. Sometimes this one can go for a very long time, so just giving yourself that space. When you're first doing these sorts of exercises, sometimes when you're watching things happen, feeling it happen can take a very long time. there's a grace to this because it's giving us the opportunity to really become aware of A, what's possible, B, what that feels like, that we can see it, and that we know the totality of all that's occurring. And as you practice these things more and more often, you'll begin to see, feel, know, hear it happen instantaneously. A whole volume of novels of things can occur. And it's like you're reading the entire series of novels all at once, and you just know everything that happened. Sometimes I even say, like, okay, can you show me all of this like faster? Do I need to be present for all of this? Just while you're doing this, I'm getting this download to command and request that all the ways in which all radiation, technological stimulation, any activity, radio frequencies that have disturbed, altered, or changed the original form, function, and utility of any aspect of your brain or nervous system be pulled, cleansed, cleared, purified, sent back to God's light, and replaced with your soul's highest, best, and healthiest original form, function, utility of your brain, nervous system, and any aspect associated or related to these systems, known or unknown, remembered or forgotten, discovered or undiscovered. Thank you. It's done. It's done. It's done. Show me. And the same from your bones, pulling, releasing, cleansing, clearing. Any distortions of the genetic material down to the level of your stem cells. Returning them all to original form in the highest, best, and healthiest way for you at this time. And just going to the light of source within, throughout, above you, wherever you sense that to be. Taking a shower in that energy, rinsing off this exercise, asking the angels of integration to continue integrating this in whatever way is for your highest and best. Grounding your energy by breathing as if you could breathe through the bottoms of your feet, and opening your eyes whenever you're ready. Yes, stretch. Mm. All right, and just to begin, like wiring our brains to piece together experiences that we're having and what that's like. Yeah, I would love to hear your experience of that. What was that like? What did you feel? What did you notice? What do you notice now? Were you tuning into when radiation was being pulled? Were you aware of what specifically was that related to? I remember the first time I did this for like 5 straight minutes, I just felt the Tesla that I drove for 4 months being pulled out of my body. Suddenly had a lot more energy after that. So powerful. Yeah, it's medical stuff can be the most tender things that we go through, and having those experiences young and not really knowing, but knowing there's so much wrapped up in it. And it's so cool that you were, and again, as I said kind of before, actually, I was earlier, like feeling things before they even happen, you know? And literally you're having that experience of being aware of something before it actually happens, and seeing that arc of things already being done. It's already done. This is just the way that it happened. And seeing that clearing that got to happen for you through this exercise, and how powerful that is. And you know, on your own time, if you feel that it's relevant, like going in and specifically it is commanded and requested that I forgive the doctor, or I forgive the material that was used, or all of these things, it can really shift a lot of the energy from that experience. And asking like, what was the value that you were to receive from that experience? Was it, you know, trusting your own wisdom and knowledge about your own body, or standing up for your, you know, in your power, whatever you feel on a soul level. And you can just connect in and ask your higher self, ask source within, like, what did I want to learn from this? And just sitting in that 0-point meditation and letting the answers, the visions, the hearing, whatever comes to you, receive that information. And can it is commanded and requested that I release these individuals, situations, circumstances from the obligation of teaching me those things. So that's getting into like Akashic work. You're like clearing the chapter, closing the chapter of needing those things to teach you something as an experience. So super, super powerful. I remember when the whole, you know, COVID mandate vaccine thing was really on the pressing issue for everyone. Like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to mandate. And I was severely injured by vaccines as a baby, screaming for a week with my brain super inflamed, pre-verbal. And I didn't realize that trauma was so stuck into my body. I mean, I knew that it happened because I was told that it happened. But when the mandates came up, I revisited that energetically and felt like how terrified I was as a baby, not really understanding what was happening, but feeling the pain. And then, you know, going in psychically and asking, and if you don't like, begin to tap it. I'm going to give you so many tools and things, but tapping into the like limitlessness, anything is possible, like feeling that energy of anything is possible. I would like to remove the biological imprints of this trauma from my body. Show me how to do that. How do I do that? That's how I come up with a lot of these exercises, is just like, I don't know, everything's possible. Just say what you want to do and like, show me how to do it. And then you'll get downloads of like, oh, do an exercise where you pull this or do that. But I've done that for all kinds of like early medical treatments that I, didn't subscribe to. I didn't say, hey, circumcise me, hey, inject me with vaccines that are going to make me, my brain expand beyond the limits of my skull. So yeah, really tender, powerful experience. And yeah, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. This piece of, this oscillation, we oscillate between the high and the low. And sometimes it can be interesting to look at that. And am I pouring all of a sudden? I don't know if you can hear that.
Oh, can't hear it.
If we are more interested in activating than integrating, that it's more exciting to learn than it is to be on the integration side. And not that this is true for you, it's fun to explore, because sometimes we can recreate experiences where we drop into a low so that we can experience the high again, instead of, can we experience what it's like to be researching and then go to the next high of the integration. So to integrate up rather than feeling that integration is a, because it's the loss of excitement that sometimes can be when we're we're downloading, and you're on such an amazing level of receiving insights and downloads yourself for this. And sometimes it's like a part of us gets addicted to the expanding. And we all are always expanding, but then there's the integration that almost feels like it's a lower point, when actually it's just like us like tasting more things to like research for the next integration up in self.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of place, but somehow you're guided through it. But yeah,
I couldn't actually hear you because it's raining so
it's a
hard.
weird, I was just saying, it's kind of a weird, location sort of to be in, where you're like stepping in more confidently into the like kind of light of your knowing, and yet vibrationally it's like quite a interesting landscape. But
Totally. I think the next exercise is going to be really cool, because what we're going to do is clear resentment between us and God. Because a lot of us resent God. And we are that. So we resent ourselves in the end, really. It's like, and this just to be clearly honest, like 2, maybe 3 weeks ago now, like this was me like having a realization that I hate God. I'm like, oh, when I didn't realize that was inside of me still. Like, oh, I hate God. Wow. And my mentor is like, who's God? And where is God? I was like, right here. And he's like, so who do you hate? And I was like, I hate myself. So it's like, no matter where you are in the journey, you're going to have all these realizations that make you feel small, that bring you down to like this place. But the humility that you're really feeling in all of these experiences is actually the sensation of you becoming real. So, and depersonalizing it, like none of the things that we're going through mean anything about us. We're here because we are literally in a space of zero experience. That's why we go to the zero meditation space. Go back to zero experience so that you can interface authentically with these aspects of consciousness, which you are, rather than being a character and a characterization of a thing that you think you are, that you're used to attributing your identity to. Depersonalize the issue, and that you can heal anything, because then you're no longer the thing, You're something that can interface with it, talk to it. What's your experience? What does it feel like to feel small? You know, why do you feel small? And you're not talking about yourself, you're talking about this particle of consciousness that is in the field of your awareness, and you get to assist it in its journey. You're walking home the virus, the bacteria, the fungus, the parasites, the experiences of medical interventions that you didn't desire. You're walking those back home. Like the experience of, you know, getting a vaccine as a baby and having like that as a consciousness itself. It's has a weight to it. So interfacing with that and asking, you know, how you can serve its experience in returning to a sense of wholeness. And then you feel more whole, even though you start as whole. And then that's how we interface with these things, but you're bringing them into deeper wholeness. All right, before we close out this session, thank you all so much for sharing such powerful experiences. Just closing your eyes. Taking a few deep, slow inhales and exhales. As if you could breathe into the bottoms of your feet. It's funny, every time that something really powerful is about to happen, the rain really starts to kick in as we're about to wash away all this resentment towards God. And speaking to yourself out loud, it is commanded and requested that I forgive God. Thank you. It's done. Show me. And witnessing yourself and whatever you perceive God to be, the energy of that, letting whatever needs to be said and expressed. And at your own pace, when you're feeling complete with that, doing the opposite, just to see what happens. Commanding and requesting that God forgives me, and watching. And as this is occurring, just on your behalf, commanding and requesting that the following downloads be given for you across all layers and levels of being, in all languages that you speak, past, present, and future, downloaded for all ancestors and descendants as is appropriate, and throughout all layers and levels of being, physical to ethereal, integrated perfectly throughout all bodies down to the cellular level. That you have sources, truth, definition, and value of relating to God from the highest perspective. That it's possible to relate to God, that you know how to relate to God, that you know what it feels like to relate to God, and that you do relate to God in a healthy and happy way. That you know how to be in relationship to life, that you know what it feels like to be in relationship to life, that it's possible to be in relationship with life, that you have sources, truth, definition, and value of being in relationship with life from the highest perspective. Just commanding and requesting that all the lines of communication between each cell of your body, from every particle of your being, communicating with all aspects of consciousness that are required, available, and open in the moments that you feel are necessary, appropriate, and healthy for you to communicate, asking that these lines of communication between you and all aspects of life, known or unknown, remembered or forgotten, discovered or undiscovered, be open, clarified, and purified in the highest and best way for you to understand, speak, and connect with aspects of consciousness for your highest and best healing now and forever. That you know what it feels like, that it's possible, and that you can, and that you know when and how to connect with source within you. That you have source's truth, definition, and value of connecting to source within you. And that you do connect to source within you, and that you always have connected to source within you. And that nothing can, does, or will stop you from connecting to source within you. Pulling, clearing, releasing any viruses from any aspect of your being, physical to ethereal, that is no longer relevant. Pulling, releasing, clearing all beliefs, ideas, perceptions, understandings, perspectives, consensus realities, or group consciousnesses related to these viruses from your body, bodies, and from the virus itself. Thanking this aspect of consciousness for anything that it taught you. And with love, sending it away. Your services are no longer needed. Aloha ma. Just downloading for you across all dimensions, time, and space, in all languages that you speak. That you know it's possible to instantly heal, that you know what it's like and what it feels like, and when and how to instantly heal, that you have source's truth, definition, and value of instantly healing from the highest perspective, and that you are instantly healed. That you are worthy of instant healing. That you have the creator's truth, definition, and value of being lovable. That you know what it feels like to be lovable, how to be lovable, when to be lovable, that it's possible to be lovable, and that you are lovable from the highest perspective. Teaching all of your cells that they know how to receive, assimilate, and transmit love, and that they are worthy of receiving this love. That you are love. That you know how to act as love, breathe as love, be as love, think as love, speak as love, do as love, and that you easily do these things. That you know how to make loving choices, that it's possible to make loving choices. Downloading for all choices that you've ever made, the knowing, understanding, belief, and perspective from love, that you've only ever made loving choices, regardless of how small or big that amount of love that you made the choice from. Resolving all conflicts on the history level, as it relates to feeling, making, or not making loving choices. Releasing yourself of all blame, victimhood, guilt, shame for any choice. That you know what it feels like to be freed, that you know how to be freed, when to be freed, what it feels like and it's possible to be freed, and that you have sources, truth, definition, and value of being free from the highest perspective. That you know how to be, receive, and express God's love. What it feels like, that it's possible to be, receive, and express God's love. That you easily transmit loving consciousness to those around you. That it's possible. Meaning requesting that all beliefs, ideas, perceptions, perspectives, consensus realities that are incongruent, inconsistent, and incompatible with these downloads be pulled, cleansed, cleared, purified from all layers and levels of being, resolved on the history level, and replaced with your soul's highest, best, and healthiest understandings, perspectives, and realizations directly from your source connection in accordance with what is most optimal for you at this time. Just allowing all the receptors in your being for doubt, self-blame, self-pity, victim consciousness to be closed. And asking that your receptors for joy, for grace, for ease, for causeless peace be opened as wide as is optimal, healthy, and necessary at this time. Asking that all guilt be pulled from your digestive system and replaced with balance in the microbiome. And one final piece before we finish up, just in this space, saying to yourself, it is commanded and requested that whatever needs to be resolved at this time is shown to me now. Thank you, it's done. Show me whatever needs to be resolved right now. Thank you, it is done. Any memory, and you can say it is commanded and requested that this is resolved in the highest and best way. Show me, or it is commanded that I forgive this. Show me. Or ask. How do I resolve this? Show me. Commanding and requesting that you have the knowing, the ability, that you have, that it's possible, that you have the truth and value of easily assimilating all information that you receive within any healing that you do for yourself, that you know things are done, that you can rest in completion, and that anything else that's required or needed of you will be brought to your attention whenever that is necessary, and that you know how to rest, integrate, and assimilate, that you know to separate time for yourself to enjoy, to play, to exist, to rest into okayness, to the perfection of your body and all its systems, organs, tissues. That you know what it feels like, that it's possible, how and when, and that you do trust the resiliency of your body, that your body is resilient, and that you have the truth definition and value of your body's resiliency from the highest perspective. Commanding and requesting that the highest relational capacity and capability And possibility at this time between you and your body is activated, integrated, understood, seen, felt, heard in the ways that is most beneficial for you, most easily understood. That you know what it feels like, that it's possible, and that you do honor your body from the highest perspective. Trust your body from the highest perspective. Love your body from the highest perspective. Commanding and requesting that if there's anything that the body would like for you to cease doing, consuming, or perceiving about it, to be brought into awareness now, and thanking the body for that communication. Thank you, body, for sharing your intimacy with me.
Bye, guys. See you next time. Thanks.
Commanding and requesting the angels of integration to continue integrating these energies in the highest and best way. Without needing any signs or symptoms in order to confirm what is already finished. All right, I sent a little note in the chat. You can take a photo of that if you want. I'm also I am creating a work booklet. It's super beautiful. I'm making it on Canva. And it's we were joking last night about it being the 10,000 commandments, like having all sorts of things listed by body parts and issues that you're dealing with. And so it's gonna be, yeah, it is very amazing. But at first, like for just this between now and next session, which is gonna be 2 weekends from now, really just focus on like the getting to zero meditation. And if you're having trouble, it is commanded and requested that I be taken to my 0 point. Show me. But just doing that every day, because what you're doing is creating a tendency towards a gravity within you, to the source within you. If you don't know how to do something, command that you're shown how to do it. This is just you relate, and if that feels too like gritty to like command something, request it. I like saying both sometimes, you know, commanded and requested. When I healed my eyes, when I was literally going blind actively, I was like, I command right now that these heal. It's like I had no room. There was like 10 feet before me and the blurry box car kind of looking thing in front of me. And going through that list of everything, every situation, every circumstance that came to mind that you resented, and commanding that forgiveness, commanding that you forgive it, and then witness it. And then when you're in these visions or feeling it in your body, there may be start to feel, because the thing about the 0 point is when you're in that zeroness, you'll become more sensitive, more aware of what's not zero, what's not you, what's festering above that 0 point line. And when I'm working with someone in a session, when I'm channeling like that, I really, all I'm doing is I feel all of this energy, and I'm like, okay, this isn't 0 point, what is going on here? And then I tune into that, and I'm like, okay, commanding whatever needs to be resolved in order for that to like return to 0. And I keep doing that until I'm left in my own body completely like open, receptive, the void, 0. And I know then that the client is also feeling this way. Sometimes the client will be able like, oh my God, I feel great. And I'm like, I don't, so this isn't done, you know? And then you get to take someone deeper, you know? So the deeper you go into quiet, into the 0 point, and the more that you practice that, the deeper you'll go into it, the more you'll be shown. And life will let you see. You can only see as deeply as you love. So life doesn't give, you know, there are psychics out there that can see a certain level of things, but the more that you love, the more that you just attune yourself to that unconditional love that you ask to be sent to all of your cells, to recondition, to rewire your subconscious, your body subconscious, your nervous system. You begin to become that which you're transmitting to your clients, to yourself first, of course. But this is about you becoming your own interior designer. You're feeling the interior of your being. What feels not so pretty? Let's design that gorgeously with love. like you're gonna feel so badass at the end of this series. If you don't already. And when you're in these visions, when you're commanding that forgiveness, a deeper layer may come up. So when I was healing my UTI, it would be like, oh, like my dad in this situation. I'd be like, okay, it's commanded that I forgive my dad for this. And then that would lead to the next thing. And I'd be like, okay, it's commanded and requested that I forgive this. Show me. And then I would watch. And I would just watch the next one and the next one. So if there's a particular illness that you're dealing with right now, focusing on that. And if you can almost like agitate the pain a little bit, it's really helpful to use pain as a meditative tool when you want to heal something. But you don't, hopefully you don't have to go into pain in order to find it, but it helps. But so maybe there's something emotionally painful, you know, there was or even something that's past. What was the most painful disease, disorder, dysfunction in your life or event in your life? Doesn't even have to be disease, physical disease, emotional time period, an event that was really distressing. You're time traveling and going back to these places and resolving what's still left imprinting your life, because your body is this crystal that's transmitting and receiving information based on what's encoded in it. So you may feel, even consciously, you may feel like you're complete, resolved. You know, it's like when I was raped, it was like, oh, no big deal, done, complete. And on many levels, it was completely healed the moment it happened. But then there's like these other little layers, you know. How was your body's experience of that? It's commanded that my body forgive these people. Any questions, curiosities? It's a lot to process. Also going back, if you've taken different pharmaceutical drugs that you felt harmed your body, I went and forgave all medical doctors that I've ever seen. Anyone who prescribed me, anyone who prescribed me, you know, antibiotics when I was going through that whole thing, you know. Forgiving the antibiotic itself, the consciousness of the antibiotic itself. It's like literally, I mean, you can just think of all these ways, but when you're dealing with something like serious, or even if it's not serious, you just want to clean as much as you can from all angles. So you have to think about all these different relationships that are occurring. Can I forgive my mother from when I was still inside of her? It is commanded and requested that I, as a baby in my mother, forgive my mother. Show me. See what happens, what comes up. And then replace it with unconditional love. And then also if you feel like you've lacked in taking care of yourself, like specific, if you can, when I say that, if something comes up, going to that specific feeling, memory, place in your life, even if it's now, commanding and requesting that you forgive yourself for this and show me what was the benefit of not taking care of myself. There's always a gain that a part of you is getting out of that. A lot of the times it's the inner child feeling abandoned. So many of us are focused on healing so intently that we ignore the actual consciousness that we're trying to unify with. So if you have a gratitude journal and that doesn't seem to work, maybe try a fuck it journal. And then eventually go back to a gratitude journal. So yes, homework, just asking to be shown, directed to the 0 point, deeper than ever before, every day. Going through your list of people, events, circumstances, memories, resolving each of them. And if all of this feels like a lot, like show me that I have the ability. Download me with, so I say this in the morning. I said this the other day before class, like download me with the perfect ability to be able to express what I need to express, when to express it, when to pause, when to break, when to do all these things, right? It's like, I don't need to do all these things on my own. Like just command that I'm just coding. I'm a computer software writer. That's all I'm doing. So if it feels like this is overwhelming, like it is commanded and requested that I'm downloaded with the patience, the understanding, the ability, the feeling, the know-how to do these exercises for myself, for my lineage, for my family, in the highest and best way, with grace and ease, that I know how to easily process all the information that comes up, that I know that I am, that I do, that it's possible to integrate things upon contact, that I don't have to spend time processing or integrating things. That's it. And if you want to do extra credit, Google Virus Mania. It's an amazing book. Another thing that's coming to mind, a friend of a friend's documentary called House of Numbers. I think it's on YouTube. House of Numbers, Virus Mania. And extra credit would be to look up the 5 biological laws. I'm more gonna have you guys do that after next class, but might be fun. It's a lot of content to get into, but really cool stuff in German New Medicine. Melissa Sell, Dr. Melissa Sell is really good on YouTube. Dr. Kelly Brogan, some of you probably heard of her. She's more popular. The thunder is wild right now. at the end of, we're starting with diagnosis. At the end of this, you'll realize there really isn't such a thing as a diagnosis. Just misunderstandings about what's happening in the body, and fear and grief and sorrow, and countless people's stories wound up in ideas about what things are that perpetuate a system of domination and a lack of intimacy. And what we do when we're healing ourselves or helping others move through a process of healing is inviting intimacy in spaces that are completely lacking in it. It's how dis-ease really begins. And not that that is our fault, but it's our opportunity to go into deeper intimacy and to share and love and heal, and really remind ourselves of our wholeness. And that is how we reach resolutionary wellness within and throughout. And it begins with you, in love with you. So just downloading you with absolute incredible joy and peace, knowing that you've already taken the first step forward in honoring and loving yourself to a deeper level than you could have ever dreamed of asking to receive for yourself. Thanking every cell, every bacteria, every virus, fungus, mold, candida, parasite for everything that it has taught you. And that you no longer have anything to learn from it. Anyways. Love you guys so much. I will stay on for a few more minutes if any of you have questions, but you're all free to carry on if you desire.